Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it. Greetings, Algo Artisans. Cowboy Nick here. The market is insane, and we're going to talk about it. Before we get into it, please go ahead and get your free Algo links in the description, and you can get in there, take a look at the Algo. You watch me build it, you watch me turn it into code using Grok, and then I show you the tools that traders are using to hook their Autobot trader to their exchange so they can trade while they're not at that computer. Okay, so this is just an example. You would have to optimize that algo to work for your trading. So it's not plug and play, but it's everything but. Let's go ahead and take a look at the usual suspects. We have the NASDAQ, USDJPY, EURUSD, BTCUSD, AUDUSD, USDCAD, GBPJPY, and gold. Before we look at the charts, let's take a look at the economic data dropping over on forexfactory.com. Just some quick general market data before we actually look at these calendared events. Understand that the market is a little bit spooked. We had major players like Peter Thiel sell a lot of his Nvidia, and he's short on a lot of tech stocks, and a lot of people think that the stock market is going to crash. So that is playing into our charts and everything else as we go through this data. Now, today is already over. We had data come out from Canada. Tomorrow on Tuesday, the only data coming out is 7:30 p.m., the wage price index from Australia. Wednesday at the European Open, there is the British CPI, and then at 2 p.m. EST, we have FOMC minutes. So that might be a pretty big deal. You're going to see it on my charts, and that's where my forecast actually kind of end this week. Now, I do continue the forecast. We'll talk about that when we look at the charts. Let's move on to Thursday. We have some employment data coming out Thursday morning, 8:30 a.m. EST. We have unemployment claims tentatively coming out. Looks like it's still tentative because of the government shutdown, which is now over, so we may or may not see that data or know what time it is until the day of. Usually by that day, the calendar is either going to reflect the time or it will take that off the calendar. For Friday, European Open, we have the British retail sales data month over month, and then we have all of our PMI data coming out. We have 3:30 a.m. EST, the German manufacturing and services PMI, and then we have the British PMI data coming out at 4:30 a.m. EST, and then we have the US data coming out at 9:45 a.m. EST on Friday. And that is it for the data this week. Let's go ahead and jump into the charts, and we will start with the NASDAQ. So like I said, a couple of things. Everything's pretty bearish. We had a lot of data come out right at the end of October, right before November, where a lot of major players are now short or selling a lot of their major positions. Warren Buffett moving to bonds and cash, and the market is kind of spooked. So we're seeing, if I zoom out here, the NASDAQ is starting to fall and go away from its uptrend, and now it is officially in a downtrend going back to the beginning of the month. So what are the key levels we're looking at? The support that may or may not hold is going to be 24,600, and there's a bit more support below that around 24,000. The market being bearish, and you see a lot of these lower highs, and in fact that's pretty much all you see here are lower highs and lower lows, and that really is the definition of a downtrend. This is a bearish situation. That said, we might see price pop up a little bit or just head down and break through this 24,600. Now the market might slow down. We've got the FOMC minutes coming up. That is the record of the prior FOMC when they decided not to cut rates. We get to see what they're thinking a little bit more closely, and that can give us clues as to what's going to happen, and it can affect the market. But I do think price will either just head sideways, just stay above 24.6, or go down below to 24,150 or so. And then once that data comes out, really anything can happen, but if it's a nothing burger, I expect sideways action, possibly down. It really depends on news. For some reason, we actually see a bullish event. The upper bound I'm looking at is at 25,800. And of course, if it is truly bullish, then the sky's the limit. But in the current environment, I don't expect that. But if price did go above this 25,360, it could break up to the 25,800. Let's move on and look at USDJPY. Both JPY pairs are reflecting how the Japanese yen is being allowed to get weak. So we'll see that later with the GBPJPY. So I basically have 3 different paths all saying more or less the same thing. Your lower bound right now is actually right up here. It's broken above this resistance, which is now support at 155.07. If price breaks below that, then the lower bound becomes 153.60, but we're not there. Now the upper bound in the near term is going to be 155.91, and I think price is going to stay below that. It might get hyper bullish and head up, which means the Japanese yen is getting very weak against the dollar, or it could go sideways and just kind of be a little higher than it is right now. If the FOMC minutes are really kind of a nothing burger or just not unexpected, then I think price will continue up in this general direction. Let's take a look at the euro. The euro is a little bit bearish, although there is some decent support here. It doesn't seem to be quite as affected by the rest of the stock market or anything else. Lower bound is going to be at 115.41 and upper at 116.57. Price action is a little bit sloppy, so I expect a grind down and to the right to any of these levels. Probably not quite to that 115.41, but it could get there. I think it's just going to grind and step down here and there. And of course, if the FOMC minutes aren't really significant, then we'll probably see a continuation of a little grind and then a step down. Something along those lines. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is definitely bearish. We have a lot of people selling. There are those who believe there is an attack on Bitcoin as well. So for the moment, based on the algos up to FOMC minutes, I expect a grind down and to the right. We could see a hard step down. Right now, the support really is all the way down at 75,000, but the way Bitcoin works is that it may want to stay above 90,000. And believe it or not, 88 is actually a key level. Rather than 90,000, which is a psychological level, price could easily bounce off of 88 instead, and this is for algorithmic reasons. Now, if the FOMC minutes are relatively inconsequential, then we'll probably see the same thing, kind of a grind down to the right with harder steps down, kind of like the euro, but a lot stronger. Let's take a look at AUDUSD. Now, this is a lower time frame downtrend. You can see price is making lower highs, lower lows, and it may want to continue to do that, but there's a pretty strong support sitting down here at 64.59. Close by to price is going to be at 65.50. I think price is going to bounce off of this support again, sitting at 64.57, and then go sideways through FOMC. Maybe start to move up, but if FOMC is relatively unremarkable, price might want to dip down. This was actually a little hard to say. I should add a separate alternative path where price could actually head up a little bit from here. We have to make room for that possibility. Let's move on to USDCAD. Now, USDCAD is pretty bullish, with the dollar being bullish against the Canadian dollar, so I do expect price to grind up and to the right. Lower bound is 140.14, and then your higher time frame support is going to be 139.84. Your upper bound, one area to watch for a rejection to the downside, might be 140.89. Price could actually bounce off there a little bit down, but even if it did, I think it would continue up. It might just break right through that with an upper bound at 141.43, a stronger resistance up in that area. Let's take a look at GBPJPY. As we said earlier, the Japanese yen is getting weaker, so we do have a strong resistance at 205.37, but price is actually bouncing around right now just below a resistance that's relatively strong as well at 204.24. Now, there is also a bit of support right here as well, so this is a key area. Price probably will just grind until it heads up. It might knock its head on 205.34, or it might even break above that, but I think we're going to see price stay below that until the FOMC minutes. But I think we're going to see price stay below 205.36 until the FOMC minutes come out. And if the FOMC minutes are inconsequential, up and to the right, slow grind. Let's take a look at gold. Gold looks like it's been attacked, and if I were to strictly follow the algos, it's probably going to want to head down and retouch 39.30. I don't think we're going to see that low again of 38.86, not this week at least. However, gold is high time frame strong. Once everything calms down a little bit, people are probably going to stop liquidating their gold positions and be willing to invest back into the elemental. So I do expect price to either grind a little bit up and sideways, down sideways, or a little more down and sideways. Ultimately, the upper bound right now is 42.50. I don't see price going back up to touch that prior to FOMC minutes. And if, again, they are inconsequential, I expect price to go sideways or maybe even a little bit bullish afterwards into the market close for the week. And that is all we have for you today. Remember, at Algo Factory, what we do is we predict where price is going to go and when it's going to go there. And when we have a probabilistic model, when we have an idea of how often we are correct, we can actually extract money from the markets at a predictable rate, in a predictable manner. And that's what we like. Now, these predictions I've put on today are merely just for knowing which way the wind is blowing. And those of you who are trading, make sure you do your own research. In the meantime, we do have a free algo. So go on over to the description, click the link. Again, I'm going to show you how I build an algo, how I turn it into code, and then I'm going to show you the tools that traders use to connect that to their exchange to trade. In the meantime, we are live on YouTube Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:30 a.m. EST, and we become a little bit more precise. I'll even take trades on there and show you what I might be thinking as far as how I might trade that session. So hope to see you there. Thank you all for watching. AlgoFactory.tech. Learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro, and we'll see you there.